I have a bit of an interesting relationship with Doom. I remember as a kid being aware of the original Doom, but didn't play it much. I think the first time I ever played it was at my friend's house on his PC back in like 3rd grade. Coming from stuff like Sonic and Mario, the game was a complete mystery to me at the time. I thought it was too complicated, having to move around in first person with the arrow keys and shoot with control all the way on the other side of the keyboard. Where was the controller? Initially, I didn't find the concept all that compelling compared to something like Sonic, so I never really paid it much attention as a kid. Platformers were all I was really interested in. Not that I ever could have even played Doom at home at the time if I wanted to. The only PC in my house for the longest time belonged to my dad for work, so we were only allowed to use it sparingly, certainly not for gaming. My first home console was a Sega Genesis, which had a port of Doom, but my parents never would have let me play it, which was probably a blessing in disguise because the Genesis version is pretty ass. Though, maybe that wouldn't have mattered because I finally fell in love with Doom for real in middle school from the most unlikely of sources. Middle school math sucked. Fighting the minions of hell, on the other hand, was a damn good time. The Game Boy Advance version of Doom was hardly, well, advanced. But as someone with barely any experience playing Doom, I didn't notice the missing textures and geometry from the PC version. Though, even I knew the original game didn't have the goofy green blood, a concession to uphold the kid-friendly image of Nintendo at the time, I'm sure. Even still though, the game had the most important element perfectly intact: the fast, furious combat. Even on a 2-inch screen running at what was generously to my eyes now could only be 15 FPS at best, Doom is still a blast to play. The combat is frantic and fast, circle strafing a dozen demons charging and hurtling projectiles at you, exploring every nook and cranny of the UAC trying to find hidden passageways and secret items. Each level is brilliantly designed and a difficulty curve that is perfectly tailored to ease you into the mechanics of the game and giving you access to more weapons at just the right clip to make sure you always have a fighting chance against the demonic horde. I could fill an entire video about how brilliant the original Doom is, but why bother? You've all played it before, you know it's amazing. It was certainly better than sitting through a geometry lecture. To this day, I'm pretty piss poor at advanced math, but I know about a lot of the secret items and locations in the first episode of Doom. I think that was a worthwhile trade. High school came and went though, and with the advent of the Nintendo DS, my trusty GBA and Doom were largely forgotten in wake of being able to play Mario Kart matches with friends in the middle of class instead. Despite at this point having my own PC, I, like my dad, mainly used it for work instead of play, and Doom was again put on the back burner in my mind, and it wouldn't be back until quite a few years later with a little help from a mod. If you had to describe Doom's gameplay in a single word, what would you use? I've often used the word brutal to describe it, and apparently Sergeant Mark IV agrees with me, the creator of a now legendary mod for the classic Doom aptly titled Brutal Doom. Brutal Doom brought me back into the classic game that I loved in middle school, only this time on my PC using a modern source port, enabling things like mouse look, jumping, additional lighting effects, network play, enhanced textures and effects, the list goes on and on. Doom had a whole new lease on life with a modern source port alone, but add Brutal Doom to the equation and well... let's just say the mod lived up to its name. Brutal Doom, and later Project Brutality as well, quickly cemented Doom as one of the few games in my go-to stress relief rotation. A game that provides the perfect power trip, that insanely visceral sensation to combat that keeps you coming back over and over again, keeping what's in essence a repetitive experience fresh and rewarding. Ever since discovering it in 2012, I've played and replayed Brutal Doom regularly, and it brought me into the massive Doom modding community. So there's always another mod, megawad, or total conversion to add to the mix to make things fresh. Finally, I'd experienced Doom at its best, and it's taken its place alongside Metal Gear Rising and DMC as my go-to stress relievers, and wresting a crown from Halo 1 is my favorite all-time shooter. So when id and Bethesda announced an all-new entry in the Doom series, it might surprise you that while I was initially curious, I was not overly hyped. After all, Doom 3 seemed to push the series in a new direction, morphing it from a run-and-gun circle-strafing killzone to a more atmospheric survival horror game with less emphasis on raw gunplay. And now don't get me wrong, it was a decently made survival horror game, just not the kind of experience I'm really interested in, especially from a game with Doom on the cover. With Doom 4, I expected more of the same, assuming we'd at best get a more refined successor to Doom 3, a demonic take on a hybrid of horror and contemporary shooter. Then we got our first trailer at E3 2015. was fucking Brutal Doom! This was a return to form. This was fucking Doom. A faithful modernization of everything that made the original a classic, and seemingly eschewing the modern monotony that had taken root in the FPS genre over the last few years. My hype meter had instantly been turned up to 11, with high expectations for the true successors of the game I had fond memories of in high school, while also seemingly taking inspiration from my favorite mod I'd ever discovered. So how does Doom 4, or Doom 2016, or Doom stack up? Holy shit. Doom is so unapologetically influenced by its past incarnations mechanics that it's almost a badass aspect of the game in and of itself. To so confidently spit in the face of nearly all the conventions and evolution the first-person genre has undergone in the ensuing 20 years since the original Doom's definition of it with its release, confident that the formula it pioneered was already perfect, and only adding things that enhanced the core tenets of the classic design, things that were technologically impossible back in the 90s, it's a fucking declaration of war against the genre as we know it today. Doom knows exactly what it wants to be, and even more importantly, exactly what it doesn't, namely, almost everything else on the market today.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Samuel Hayden. I'm the head of this facility. I think we can work together and resolve this problem in a way that benefits us both.
The first thing you're going to notice about Doom is that it's fast.
Like, really fucking fast.
It's crazy coming from something like Brutal Doom, which is already far more movement-based than your stop-and-pop cover shooter like Call of Duty or Battlefield, only to go a step further and somehow make that feel slow in comparison. Doom Guy runs at a full sprint constantly, laughing at the idea of a limited sprint bar. Just like in the original games, you never have to worry about reloading, your guns pulling from some magical massive clip that spans your entire inventory. Sub-weapons like grenades are technically unlimited, working on a cooldown system instead of forcing you to search for ammo. Tight corridors and small chambers that characterize the original Doom's levels are replaced with sprawling multi-leveled arenas, complete with jump pads that make them feel more like a Quake 3 map than a campaign setting. Initially, these arenas begin empty, with a strange demonic artifact that you need to destroy to trigger the encounter, but halfway through the game, the training wheels come off, and it just sicks the hordes of hell on you without warning, locking you into an arena with nothing but your shotgun and your wits, keeping you from digesting inside a Calcodemon. All of this hyper carnage is presented perfectly by the game running at a buttery smooth 60 frames on consoles, and even maxed out I got similar frame rates on PC at 720p with my lowly GTX 960, so the engine has some give to it despite looking amazing. The intensity of Doom's combat simply cannot be understated. It gets the blood pumping, and many times after clearing a room I'd realize I've been holding my breath and grasping my controller far too tightly. It's an adrenaline rush of the highest order that needs to be experienced to be truly appreciated. This sensation of speed is brought to home so much more effectively by the familiar enemy types being retooled. Imps that would lazily move back and forth and throw the occasional fireball in classic Doom now dart around the battlefield at a full sprint, leaping from ledges and climbing pillars and jumping away at you while tossing a fireball. Pinkies, who would lumber towards you in an awkward zigzag to dodge your fire, now just flat out bull rush you, armored enough to tank the 3 or so shotgun blasts you'll get off before they collide with you. Hell Knights and Barons of Hell are massive, towering over other enemies and truly living up to their names, and can quickly leap and traverse gaps, crashing down on you with massive AoE effects. Calcodemons are... well, Calcodemons are pretty much the same, just a lot uglier. But other than that, all of the classic enemies have been retooled and redesigned to better accommodate the hellish pace this game moves at. A complementary aspect to the speed is the introduction of verticality. While the original Doom had this in certain places, technical constraints made its use limited. Doom 2016 obviously has no such limitations, and the killbox arenas that make up the majority of the game's levels are almost always multi-tiered, and combined with Doom Guy's ability to clamber ledges and the eventual double jump upgrade makes combat and movement a truly three-dimensional affair, forcing you to be aware of all of your surroundings in all 3 dimensions to make sure you're never overwhelmed. But of course, the biggest addition to Doom 4 and the most significant change to its gameplay is the introduction of glory kills. At first, I was incredibly hesitant of this addition when I first saw it in the trailers. The new Doom so confidently rejects the coddling of modern FPS games that I was disappointed to see what appeared to be the equivalent of regenerating health, each glory kill rewarding you with health drops. In practice though, this is a complete non-issue because the entirety of Doom's gameplay has been crafted around the glory kill system, making the rewards for the stylus executions not coddling, but absolutely necessary to survive. Because the enemies in Doom 4, even on normal, are way more powerful than they ever were in the original. No longer are imps and single-shot pushovers they were in Doom 1. It takes a point-blank shotgun blast to drop an imp now, and with their increased mobility, that's easier said than done. Pinkies, which only needed a few shotgun blasts to drop before, are now essentially mini-bosses, taking the better part of a dozen shots to take down, and are no longer staggered by your weapons, meaning you can't just stand there and unload. In contrast, Doomguy himself is actually a lot weaker by default in Doom 4. A direct hit from an imp's fireball can shave 15 to 30 points of health, and damage just escalates from there. You can't tank hits on Hurt Me Plenty difficulty like classic Doomguy can. You have to keep moving and dodging attacks to stay alive. In an enclosed arena, that's you versus upwards of 20 demons at once though, so you're gonna get hit eventually. And to balance out that inevitable damage, glory kills allow you to gain back a few points of health, usually around 5 to 15, from stunned enemies, and only for a few brief seconds after they've taken enough damage and are in close proximity. Not only does this system balance combat, but it also keeps the pace up, making encounters even more frantic, while also training you how to unlearn the stop and pop mechanics of COD and relearn the classic run and gun. Because instead of having you duck out of a room and search for health packs, Doom 4 instead locks you in an arena and forces you to be offensive to be defensive. The best way to regenerate health is to play smart, move fast, and kill quickly, which is, completely intentionally, the same way to just play the game well. A couple quick glory kills after a well-tossed grenade into a group of imps can get you back in the game and give you just enough HP to carry you through the rest of an encounter. And on top of that, this system of rewarding you for playing the game as designed gives you the incentive to keep moving and to get right into the middle of the fray, subtly teaching you how to move fast, dodge attacks, and be mindful of your environment, all while you chase those few extra essential HP vials. It's pure brilliance. Probably the most glaring addition to Doom 4, the only addition that seems to embrace modernity in any sense, is the drip feeding of upgrades throughout the game. Each level has 5 main encounters in it that, based on your performance, give you upgrade points for your weapons, as well as mission-specific combat challenges, like performing 5 different kinds of glory kills on a certain enemy that, when completed, also grant you a weapon upgrade point. Each level also has secret areas to discover that grant points if they're all found, and armor upgrades are scattered throughout the level, both Praetor units, allowing you to upgrade your suit's abilities, as well as raw Argent energy, harvested hell energy, permanently upgrading your choice of health, armor, or ammo capacity. There are also 12 hidden rune challenges to complete that grant you additional equipable abilities, and even upgrades to your guns have to be unlocked by finding drones hidden throughout that level. And last but not least, there are hidden pop figure-esque Doomguy collectibles to unlock character models in the gallery. Needless to say, there's a lot of content in Doom's massive campaign that incentivizes repeat playthroughs. It's a fun system, taking an already impressive firearm and adding even more ridiculous capabilities to it. Like that machine gun? Strap a rocket launcher to the side. You know what's cooler than a shotgun? A shotgun and a grenade gun in one. A chain gun with 1 barrel? Pfft, that's so passé. Let's give it 3 barrels instead. Of course, all the upgrades can then be further upgraded still, with the final OP tier only unlocked after completing a specific challenge in combat with that weapon, requiring skill to get the best of the best. For all the benefits this system offers, I still feel like a bit is lost from the classic exploration method. I wish maybe instead of hiding away chibi Doom guys, we instead had some of the more broken weapons tucked away in nooks and crannies. As it is, the entire arsenal of Doom 4 is basically given to you at a steady pace. I never really had an experience like E1M2, where you can find a chain gun in a secret area a couple levels before you actually should. Then again, maybe I just wasn't looking hard enough. That being said, I can't really complain too loudly. The grenade launcher upgrade for the shotgun is the only reason I was able to complete this game in a reasonable amount of time with my sanity intact. If I had to level any complaints against the game, I'd honestly be hard-pressed. Probably my only serious disappointment is a lack of any kind of co-op in the campaign. I regularly have friends over to come and land Brutal Doom, so the fact that we can't do the same with this new game is really disappointing. The campaign itself is glorious, but without going into spoiler territory, not that there's much story to spoil, it seems like it ended a bit too early. I'm hoping that maybe this means this is only episode 1, and we'll get episode 2 and 3 via DLC in the vein of both Doom and Doom 2, but it is already announced multiplayer DLC only so far, which is a bit disheartening since competitive multiplayer has no appeal to me personally. The only other thing is rather minor, but I gotta say, after years of playing Brutal Doom, the level of gore and the kick of the weapons in Doom 4 just pales in comparison. I mean, here's a shotgun blast in Brutal Doom versus the same thing in Doom 4. The gore I can forgive, since adding that level of blood to a modern game would almost assuredly land it an AO rating. But the sound effects are a bit harder to get over. Granted, they sound great compared to vanilla Doom, and that's probably the effect they were looking to emulate in the first place. But still, when you fire a shotgun in Brutal Doom, it sounds powerful. In Doom 4, it just sounds good. Overall though, Doom 4 is a modern masterpiece of first-person shooting, ironically enough because it abandons so much of modernity in pursuit of recapturing and refining that old-school appeal. It's a vision masterfully realized in the very best first-person campaign I've played in recent memory. But is it better than Brutal Doom? You know, it's hard to say because Brutal Doom is still classic Doom, and the original has a timeless charm to it that really extends beyond quantification. It's why there's still such a huge community around the game today, and why something like Brutal Doom can even exist in the first place. I play Brutal Doom, and I still feel like I'm playing Doom, a game that's been around me in some fashion my entire life. A cultural icon, a pioneer of the genre, and a piece of gaming history. It's really hard to decouple that admiration from my perceptions of it merely as a game in comparison to its contemporary incarnation. And perhaps I shouldn't even attempt to do so in the first place. Classic Doom is its own thing. It has a legacy all its own, and it's always going to be there. Doom 4, by comparison, is in its infancy. With Snap Map, we might finally have a whole new platform to build on, and Doom 4 may have a lasting legacy all its own that we can't even fathom now. But that doesn't change the fact that Doom 4 is unquestionably a fantastic experience that shouldn't be missed. It's everything that makes the classic FPS so good, wrapped in a new coat of fresh paint, with just enough modern bells and whistles to introduce the gameplay to a whole new audience that may have never experienced it before. It may not dethrone Brutal Doom, but that was never its mission. It sits alongside it as one of the most enjoyable gaming experiences I've ever had, and you can't ask much more from a game than that.
And that's all I got for this video. Give it a thumbs up if you thought it was good, or give it a thumbs down if you thought it friggin' sucked. Have you guys played the new Doom yet? If not, I think I just made it clear you probably should. And have you played Brutal Doom before? It's a bit more obscure than a AAA release, so maybe you haven't. Let me know what you thought about both of those based on this video and your own experiences in the comments below. Until next time, I'm Tommy Oliver. Take care.